This edition of MacVoices is supported by TextExpander by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more and download your free demo. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is the start of what I hope will be a regular series of a new series on MacVoices. Jeff Gamet and I were talking one day and realized that with all the shows we both do and all the things we talk about, we're often talking about things for people that are experienced with the Macintosh and with the iPhone and with the Apple TV and with the Apple Watch. And we've never really done a real basics kind of thing or a favorites kind of thing. So we decided to start doing this little series where it may be you may find it pretty basic and you may not. If you're new to the Mac or new to any of the Apple devices, we'd like to think that we can steer you towards some applications and some services that will make your life just a little bit easier. And obviously, they're going to be things that we feel pretty positive about that we use. So that's the way this is going to work. Jeff, welcome. It's great to have you, and thanks so much for doing this.
Well, Chuck, thanks for inviting me back yet again for another grand adventure with you. It's always just so much fun to get to hang out with you, and this whole idea I think is great because we've been around for a long time, but there's a lot of people that are new to all of this, and they need to have something, and we should not assume that everyone knows everything about using their Mac. So this is a fantastic idea.
Well, and the idea that, we both like new products and we're always checking out the new stuff. And we talk about at times, some of our favorites that are our stalwarts, but we've never really put it, I don't want to say formalized because God knows you and I are not formal by any means. Nobody would ever accuse us of that.
True.
But just the idea that, we can talk about some really basic things and say, hey, these are things we think that you should look at as someone that's getting into this new. So, and folks, we'd love to have a title or a name for this series. I haven't been able to come up with a good one. So, Jeff, if you have one, great. Folks, if you have an idea, send it in. We'd love to hear from you. Nothing dirty.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm still thinking.
Okay, good. Good. So we figure we're going to do somewhere between 2 and 4 picks a show. That way we don't overwhelm you, and just discuss them, what we like about them, what we might find wanting. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to agree on this as a really great application, but I seriously doubt we'll get into any fighting.
So Jeff, if we do, that's going to be great for ratings.
Well, yeah, like you and I would. Well, never mind that. That could get interesting. But I'm going to give you the first pick. We put some candidates together, and so I'm going to let you say which one you think people should look at first.
I think I'm going to start with something that doesn't require people to download anything just to get started. Because when you take your brand new Mac out of the box and turn it on, it's nice to be able to start doing something and not have to download new software and get it configured before you can do anything with it. So I think we should talk some about how you can customize the view that you have in the Finder so that it works the way you want.
Great idea.
All right. So the first thing that you should take a look at is, say, let me open a window here so I can remember all the things that you can look at. There we go. You have a sidebar that runs down the left side of the Finder window. And that's where you're going to see all the things that Apple thinks that you should be looking at right away. And these are the places where you find things where you get quick access to them. So you simply click on something in the sidebar on the left, and then it jumps you directly to that location in the Finder window. And that's great because that can save you a ton of clicks. But you can really customize that, which to me is important. because there are directories that I have, folders that I have that I use all the time, and I don't want to have to click through multiple folders to get down to where they are. So if you want to customize your sidebar and add, say, a specific folder or document or application, just click on whatever that item is once you found it, and then drag it into that sidebar. And now it'll appear there, and it's just always there for you anytime you need to use it. And this is one of those things where it's just, to me, it just simply makes sense. Why would you not do this? But if you're new to using the Mac, this is one of those little things that you just simply wouldn't know about unless you knew about it.
I love this, Jeff, because you're right. The one of the best things about the Macintosh is that the interface is so easy to customize to your liking. And I don't necessarily mean just desktop pictures, but actual usable ways to do things. This is something I do. Your tip is something I use all the time. The one thing I would add to it, though, is don't stress over what you're putting in the sidebar or not putting in the sidebar, because you can take it in and out very easily. And I know personally, I will drag things in for a project that I'm working on. If it's going to be more than, a couple days, I'll drag folders in there so I have easy access to them. And then when the project's over, I just get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's great. This can be a static list of things that you want access to, or it can be dynamic, transient. And you can add and remove those folders as you need them. And removing a folder is pretty easy too. You can actually let me do that just to make sure that I have all the steps right. If you control click on one of the items in that list that you've added to the sidebar, you can choose remove from sidebar, and away it goes.
And to be clear, that doesn't delete the folder. It just deletes it from the sidebar.
Right. And actually, now that we're talking about that specifically, I'm going to shoot off to the side just a little bit, because what you talked about is creating an alias, and a lot of people don't know what an alias is, and just exactly what that does for them. So when you drag a folder into that sidebar on the left, what you're doing is creating an alias to the actual folder. So think of it sort of like a little portal where you step on the portal, and or maybe it's a transporter. Whatever analogy works best for you. When you step on this, you are instantly transported to whatever it is that represents. So if you've made a folder that's called, say, podcasting projects, and you drag that into the sidebar, it doesn't matter what folder or other location you're in your Mac. When you click on that podcast projects folder in your sidebar, you're immediately taken to that location. So when you get rid of that alias from the sidebar, it just gets rid of that alias pointing to the original folder. The original folder and all of its contents are still there.
The only caveat that I would say is, if you're going to try this, folks, by all means, go to the Finder, pick a file, make an alias, then look hard at that alias's icon to make sure you understand the difference between the original icon and the alias icon. You can throw the alias icon away if you are finished with it or whatever, and you don't lose anything. But if you aren't sure which is the alias and which is the real folder or file or whatever, you could accidentally throw the real file away, at which point the alias does you no good because the file is gone.
Right. And now that we've gone this far down the rabbit hole, how would you make an alias of a file or a folder when you're just looking at it and you want to put it someplace other than the sidebar? And the answer is you can control click or right click on that item, and you get this pop-up menu, and one of the options will be make alias. And once you choose that, now you'll have a second icon that looks like the first, but there's this little arrow in the bottom corner going, whoop, kind of coming up at a little swoop up angle thing. And now you can move that alias anywhere you want it. Alternately, because keyboard shortcuts are a wonderfully efficient way to be able to do things, if you hold down, Command and Option, the Command and Option keys on your keyboard, while you click on that file or folder and then start dragging, you'll see an icon start moving around, and it'll have that little alias arrow in the bottom corner while you're dragging it around. So you could have, say, 2 windows open, and the file that you have in one window, you want to have an alias of it in another. So you can just do the Command Option, click and drag from the one window to the other window, and when you release your pointer, you'll see the original file where you created it, and now the alias with its little arrow in the corner in the new location.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of Text Expander. You already know how Text Expander can make you more productive on your Mac, right? How it can turn a few keystrokes, called a snippet, into a word, a sentence, a paragraph, or a page of text or code. How it ensures that your message is clear, consistent, and correct, whether you use the snippet or any or all of the other members of your team use the snippet. But I want to remind you that Text Expander is available for your iPhone and iPad as well, with those same benefits that you enjoy on your Mac. Using the Text Expander keyboard, you have access to Text Expander Power in any app that allows text entry on your iPhone or iPad. Get faster and more efficient in mail, messages, and more. But it gets better. Many of your favorite note-taking and writing, task management, and social media iOS and iPad OS apps are already Text Expander enabled. Apps like DevonThink, OmniFocus, Ulysses, Drafts, Bear, and Byword. They all understand the power of Text Expander on the iPhone and iPad, and you should too. Visit TextExpander.com to see the complete list, find out everything that it can do for you, and then download it on the App Store. That's Text Expander for iPhone and iPad by Smile, the makers of world-class software at TextExpander.com. Thanks to Text Expander and Smile for their support of MacVoices. So, Jeff, I'm a little concerned that maybe we've done what we are trying not to do. That
Which is go too deep.
Go too deep. But I like the idea that we've done it because I have a coworker who has her Mac organized so that she has one window open on her desktop that is filled with aliases to everywhere else on her computer. So she has built her own little control panel dock kind of thing, and I shouldn't have said dock because the dock in Mac OS is a whole different animal. But she's built her own little window of aliases, and that way she doesn't have to go digging down. Those aliases might be 4, 5, 6, 7 layers deep if she were going to go, say, into her documents folder, but she has it all organized nice and neat, a lot nice and neater than I am, so that she has that and it's always there. And she's a lot more controlled about not covering that window up. But even if she does, she just has to click around to bring that back up, and she can basically go anywhere in her hard drive. So she has taken the idea that we started with of customizing the sidebar, which there is limited amount of space, to a whole new level, because she can then make those icons smaller and have a lot of them. So let's say if she were tracking orders with a company and there are 35 companies, she can have a folder for every company, and that is an alias. It's super small, but it facilitates her getting there. So aliases are incredibly powerful, and the sidebar is a good way to sort of get an introduction to the concept.
I like that. All right, well then how about if I bring it back up high level to wrap this part up? When you open a Finder window, by whatever method you choose. So we'll say you double click on the hard drive icon on your desktop, and now you have a new Finder window. The default view that Apple gives you is just like this big grid of all the icons for all the folders, applications. If you'd rather have, say, a list of everything, or like I prefer, a column view where I can see in each column the folder that I'm in, and then if I click on that folder, I get a new column, and it just keeps going along, and it's like creating a trail of where I am. In the top of that Finder window bar, you have a few different icons, and one of those icons is it's like it looks like, what's a good way to describe this? It looks like like a little set of boxes, or maybe like 3 little rectangles side by side or something, but there's up and down arrows on it. Click on that and you can choose if you want to look at the icons in that window just as the regular icons in a list, or in the columns like I do. So it's an easy way to customize Finder windows, and you can have different settings for different windows.
So I'm not going to let us leave this topic yet, but I'm going to twist it a little bit. I'm going to point out the fact that if you are in the Finder with no customization or anything, just if you're in the Finder, you go up and you go to Finder and pull down the preferences, that you can manage some of the icons, the Apple standard icons that are in that sidebar. So you don't have to remove them. You can just turn them off and they disappear.
Oh, that's a really great point. So you can have things like your home folder or applications appearing or not. If you don't use iCloud Drive, you can hide that too.
Yeah. And this is where, depending on how you have it set up, if you plug in external drives or a thumb drive or whatever, it may or may not appear in your sidebar depending on how you have those settings set. So like for me personally, I have the photos folder turned off because I almost never need to go to the photos folder because I'm doing it in the Photos app. That's where I'm managing things. So that just takes up vertical space that I don't need to take up. But I definitely want my documents folder in there. I personally always have the downloads folder in there and a few others, that are specific assets for the creation of MacVoices, because I'm always going out and reusing those assets. So I just put that folder in there and I can easily jump straight in. But the idea that you can go without you having to do anything other than just a couple clicks in the Finder preferences, you can change what you're seeing and get an idea of what Jeff and I are talking about.
Yeah, that's excellent point. I like that.
Yeah. And while you're there are other things that you can do, but we're not going to talk about those right now. But check around. The good thing about doing this is if you're really insecure about it, just believe it or not, take out a little piece of paper and write down what you did, how you got there, and what you clicked. Because this way you can undo anything just by clicking or unclicking, what you just did.
That's excellent advice.
Yeah, as opposed to, trying to remember, gee, I followed Jeff's advice and I drug it out. Now, how do I get it back? Oh, my God. So, start out slow, be comfortable with it. But it'll also start to teach you the idea of how the Mac works and how it you need to start thinking about the interface. Yeah.
And if I'll just add one more thing to that as we keep adding one more thing.
Yeah.
If you do something that we've been talking about, like making an alias, and you find that you moved the entire file or folder instead of creating the alias, don't freak out. You know how you can undo things when you're typing, say in Word or Google Docs or whatever text editing app you want to use, you can undo in the Finder as well. So you can just go up to the File menu in the Finder and choose Undo, or use the keyboard shortcut, the Command key and Z. And it'll put the thing back where it came from.
And that is, again, that is something that is so ingrained in us that we don't think about it even. But yeah, it's a really good point. It's a really good point.
Yeah, I try and Command Z things in real life, and it's not working yet. I still need an upgrade, clearly.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that myself. I kind of like that idea. What else? We don't want to run these shows too long because we want to give you a chance to play with things. Jeff, what else as far as the desktop goes? Do you think that we should talk a little bit about, or the Finder itself?
Well, I don't want to go too deep into things. Oh, how do you find something easily? And I'll give you a keyboard shortcut for that. Hold down the Command key and then press the space bar, and it brings up a search window. And that search window, you'll hear people talk about Spotlight. This is Spotlight, and it can search for anything on your computer. So you can just start typing the name of the folder or file you're looking for, or if you know some piece of information that's in this document or even an email, just start typing that in there, and your Mac will search the file and folder names and the contents of the documents or emails as well. And it'll just kind of go through everything and find what it can that it thinks matches what you're looking for. So it's an easy way to find something that it's on your computer, but you're just not exactly sure where to start looking.
But if you're not a keyboard person and you prefer to use the mouse, if you if you move your mouse up to the top right-hand corner of your Finder window, there's a little magnifying glass there, and it'll call up exactly the same dialogue that Jeff referenced with the command, the
keyboard shortcut, Command space bar.
Command space bar. So you can get there as well. Because I love the idea. I want you to start using keyboard shortcuts. It'll make you so much faster. But trying to remember them all as you go along can get a little intimidating. And after a while, they become second nature. But for right now, you just have to understand.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to get to the same thing on the Mac. That too is the beauty of it. Once you get to be a more experienced user, you're going to take your hands off the keyboard a lot less often. But right now, you may still be playing with that graphical interface that we all know and love, and saying, "Okay, how do I get there? How do I get that same thing?" So, yeah. The only other thing, I guess the one other thing maybe that I'll point out, and we will probably get into this in depth a lot more with this, is the dock. All those pretty little beautiful icons that are right down there at the bottom of your screen. The dock is the subject of lots of discussions. But for now, the one thing that you want to know that you can do is click on any of those to launch that particular application. You can also customize the dock very easily just by, I want to make sure I'm doing it right, because here again, it's one of those things, my fingers know how to do it. I'm not sure I know how to do it. But
if I control or command click or command click. Apparently I don't do it very often anymore either.
Yeah. It's control click.
Control click on that little divider bar.
Right. And
everything on the left of the divider bar is an application. Everything on the right of the divider bar is a file or folder.
And by doing that is a keyboard thing you have to do, the control click, you can then rearrange those icons so that if you would prefer to have your mail over on the right because you're a right-handed person, you can just drag that icon over there. It'll stay in the dock, but it'll now be on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I like that you can hide the dock, meaning make it disappear when your mouse pointer is away from where the dock would be. And I like that you can move it too. I moved my dock to the left side of my screen, so it's not at the bottom. And I did that because some of the applications that I use have controls that are at the bottom of their window. And I was constantly making the dock appear when I didn't want it to. So I moved it to the left side of my screen, and it's out of the way, but still easy to get at.
And I'm more of a traditionalist because I learned to use the dock the way Steve Jobs built it. And so mine's at the bottom, and whatever works for you. But Jeff, if you're going to tell people that they can move the dock, now you're going to have to tell them how.
Okay. So if you want to move the dock, that little divider bar that we just told you about, control click on it. And you have several options. You can turn the hiding on or off, and that's what makes it slide up and slide down when you're not using it. You can turn magnification on or off. That's a handy feature if you have a lot of stuff in your dock and the icons are kind of small. And with magnification on, as you roll over the different icons with your mouse pointer, they get bigger. So it's easier to tell what they are. But then you also have position on screen. And when you choose that, you get 3 options: left, bottom, and right. So the default is bottom, and I move mine to the left. And of course, right is an option as well. So put your dock where it makes you happy. And if anyone ever tells you that's a crazy place to put your dock, let them know that I said, no, it's not. Jeff said it's okay to put it wherever I want it.
Yes, and I support the idea of putting it wherever you want it, whatever makes sense for you. I like to have the applications that I'm using showing open because there are a lot of different reasons you want that. And again, we'll talk probably about that later. But the idea that I have more horizontal space than vertical, I like it that way. But Jeff's point is completely valid. If you find that dock covering things up, well, then doesn't work very well either. So. Jeff, I think we're almost out of time, but you just brought up.
So we made it through one topic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so much for 3 or 4.
I'd like to point out that we were thinking, hey, maybe we could do 4.
4, yeah. Not going to work. But I will add this and then jump in. Are you a mouse user or a trackpad user?
Yes. And no. Okay. So that was the horribly useless answer. I use my trackpad when I have my laptop away from my desk. When I'm at my desk, I actually use a trackball. And so for those of you that don't know what that means, a trackball, think of it like a mouse, but it has a ball on the top of it. So instead of moving the mouse around to move your cursor, the mouse stays stationary and you move your fingers along the ball and it moves the cursor for you. And I started doing that years ago because I was getting a pain in my wrist from holding a mouse all the time. But then I mix it up a little bit, and I have a graphics tablet. And for people that don't know what that is, it's like this big slate thing, and it has its own stylus like this, and I can use that to draw and paint in art related applications. But I can also use this as a mouse pointer. So I alternate between the trackball and the graphics tablet so that I'm not using the same muscles all the time when I'm moving my cursor around the screen.
So I ask because, well, first of all, I'm with you on the trackball. I loved the trackball right up until the trackpad came out, and I think that I moved to the trackpad because I've always been a lot more of a MacBook Pro user, and other than very early MacBooks, or what did they call them back then? PowerBooks?
PowerBooks.
I think PowerBooks. They had a little trackball on them, but we went to the trackpad eventually. But the very first peripheral I bought for the first Mac I owned, which was an SE, was a trackball. No question about it. I just have never been a mouse person. But I bring all this up because when you were talking about the keyboard shortcuts to move the dock, I was over here doing a 2-touch press on the dock, and up pops my the options to turn some of those things on and off too. So once again, a lot of different ways to get to things, and it almost in this case depends on which interface you're using. and there is no right or wrong.
That's true. Use what works best for you.
And I get a little bit nervous about making a blank statement to people that, look, you can't break it, you can't hurt it. You can to some extent if you empty the trash, and that's when you can start to lose things. Other than that, it's pretty difficult for you to really mess up anything on your Mac that you can't undo. At least at this stage, there are places that you shouldn't go, and again, we'll probably talk about those in future episodes. But Apple makes it difficult for you to go to those places. That's kind of the good news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. And as we're talking, I can see so many places where we can have episodes about so many things.
Yeah, and folks, for that reason, let us know what you would like to hear. If you're a new Mac user, even if you're an experienced Mac user and have questions about some of these things, we eventually, in fact, we had sort of thought we would get into maybe some third-party applications, and then that fell apart. This was sort of an organic discussion that I hope is beneficial for someone out there. And if you're not a new Mac user, send this episode to someone who is. Maybe it'll help them get started.
Yeah.
Jeff, where can folks get in touch with you if they have questions or want to throw some ideas your way?
Oh, I am so easy to find on Twitter and Instagram. I'm Gamet, both places. So hit me up. I'm watching Twitter all the time.
Great. And you can find me, of course, on the MacVoices website. There's a contact form, but I'm also at Chuck Joyner and at MacVoices on Twitter as well. So those are both excellent ways to get me. I too am watching those pretty consistently. Jeff, we'll do this again. The first episode right off the rails.
Well, you asked if I really wanted to do this, and when I said yes, we both should have known that Rails were not going to be part of the process.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Folks, he's Jeff Gamet. I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We hope to have you back again soon for this kind of show and also for our regular shows. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.